Hello everybody, I'm Alexandra Angel, I'm CTO at Applicals, and today's session is the second episode in a series of webinars on mobile growth. And I'm going to talk about effective ways to speed up your mobile website. We only have around 40 minutes and a lot of ground to cover, so let's just jump in. Speeding up your mobile website is no longer a nice to have undertake, especially since, according to Gartner, mobile usage has already surpassed desktop usage in 2014, and mobile traffic is expected to rise to 59% in 2016. When your mobile website or app is clumsy or slow, 29% of smartphone users will immediately switch to another site or app if it doesn't satisfy their needs. That means they can't find information or is too slow. In other words, optimizing your mobile user's experience is key to your business. Throughout this webinar, I'm going to cover the critical aspects of optimizing a mobile experience, and although this is a technical topic by definition, I'll try to skate around the technicalities and offer hands-on approaches that you can follow to improve your own mobile website's performance. Let's talk a bit about Google PageSpeed Insights. This tool can run a diagnosis on your website's mobile and desktop versions and provide you with clear indications about what you need to fix. Even though PageSpeed Insights is a tool built for developers, I'll do my best to translate its how-tos into a non-technical language. I hope this will help you understand where you need to optimize your mobile presence and why. The only thing that you need to do is go to PageSpeed Insights and add your website's address. You will end up with a report that looks like the one on the screen. Keep in mind that the tool will not scan your entire website, meaning all pages, and this report is generated only for the page you entered. PageSpeed Insights will also calculate a score that will tell you how optimized that page is. A score of 100 means it is fully optimized, although in real life you rarely see that. Even Google.com has a score of 59 on mobile. Just aim for achieving a reasonable score in the 60-70 area and try to resolve any problems that are marked with red. Next, I'll go over the key points that might be revealed by a PageSpeed Insights report. If you can solve these, your website score will improve a lot. Each point that you need to fix has a Show How to Fix link attached to it. Clicking on that will show you what are the exact problems that you need to address. Let's begin. The first point I'm going to talk about is browser caching. This is how PageSpeed Insights describes browser caching. Fetching resources over the network is both slow and expensive. The download may require multiple round trips between the client and server, which delays processing and may block rendering of page content, and also incurs data costs for the visitor. All server responses should specify a caching policy to help the client determine if and when it can reuse a previously fetched response. What PageSpeed Insights is trying to tell you is that you are not taking advantage of the mobile browser's capabilities. Modern browsers today can keep a copy of the files that are required to display your website. The files are saved on the user's device the first time that he or she lands on the website. The next time the mobile user navigates to a page or refreshes the current page, it will load much faster because some of the content is already downloaded and stored in the browser memory. This technique is called browser caching. Usually, you'll want to cache styling sheets or images because these consume the most bandwidth and take a long time to load. For example, you don't need to cache an article's text content. And in fact, PageSpeed Insights doesn't check text content, but the images used inside the article must be cached. As an observation, some of the things that show up as non-cached might be out of your control. For example, external libraries used for analytics. If these are preventing you from achieving a reasonable PageSpeed Insights score, you can drop them, but usually they shouldn't represent a problem. Now, how to fix the browser caching issue? Assuming you are using Apache as your web server, browser caching can be implemented quickly by adding a few lines of code in a file called htaccess. If you don't know if you're running on Apache or not, just ask your hosting company. The htaccess file is found in the root folder of your website and can contain different instructions like redirects, caching, or compressing files. And we'll talk more about compression in the next section. So be very careful when editing this file. These are the lines of code that you can add to cache styling sheets, images, and other files from your website. If you're not comfortable editing your htaccess file, ask your hosting company to edit it for you. Keep in mind that any changes you make to cache styling sheets or images might not be immediately visible in your mobile browser. To ensure that you are seeing your website's latest version, clear your browser cache or use incognito mode. This approach works only for files that are hosted directly on your server. Files that are hosted on external storage, such as Amazon's S3, are handled differently. If you're using WordPress, there are a ton of caching plugins out there that can be of help when adding browser caching. Quoting from the WordPress docs, plugins like W3 Total Cache or WP Super Cache can be easily installed and will cache your WordPress posts and pages as static files. These static files are then served to users, reducing the processing load on the server. So, these plugins will do more than browser caching. They will also change the way the content is being loaded from the server. Even though they can improve your website speed, you shouldn't use them as a quick patch if your website is experiencing loading issues because it has too many installed plugins. Make sure to keep your WordPress updated and try to keep your plugins numbers at bay. The second point I'm going to talk about is compression. From the PageSpeed Insights docs. All modern browsers support and automatically negotiate gzip compression for all HTTP requests. Enabling gzip compression can reduce the size of the transfer response by up to 90%, which can significantly reduce the amount of time to download the resource, reduce data usage for the client, and improve the time to first render of your pages. This sounds rather cryptic, but it can be quickly understood if you think about archiving a file. Modern browsers have the capacity to interpret archived files. So, if your server sends out a compressed file, the browser will know how to unpack it and properly use it. It's easy to see why this particular practice will greatly speed up your website. Archived files will have a size that is a few times lower compared to the original. Yet, this applies to text files, for example styling sheets or other codes used to display the page, and doesn't impact images. For images, you have to use a different technique. How to fix this problem? Well, like browser caching, file compression can be implemented by adding a few lines of code in your htaccess file. This will ensure that all styling sheets, JavaScript files, and HTML pages are archived before being shipped by the server. Let's move on to optimizing images. Quoting from the PageSpeed Insights docs, images often account for most of the downloaded bytes on a page. As a result, optimizing images can often yield some of the largest byte savings and performance improvements. The fewer bytes the browser has to download, the less competition there is for the client's bandwidth, and the faster the browser can download and render content on the screen. Besides a few elements that are used for styling, like for example your logo, most images are part of the content, so they are the first thing that you need to pay attention to. PageSpeed Insights will also tell you how much kilobytes you can save by optimizing each image. Depending on that, you can focus on those images that are causing the biggest issues. Google has an entire guide about optimizing images, but the main points that you need to keep in mind are: don't use images that are too large compared to how they are displayed. For example, don't use a 3000 per 3000 pixel image if the users will only see it at 500 per 500 size. Reduce the quality of the images. Lower quality means a lower size, so bring it down as much as possible without making it look bad. Also, take into consideration using responsive images. The aim of responsive images is not to deliver a higher quality image to screens that can display it, which we can easily do. The aim is to deliver the highest quality image that is supported and nothing more. Although responsive images are not supported out of the box by all mobile browsers, they will most likely become a standard in the future. Again, if your website is WordPress based, notice that as of WordPress 4.4, images are responsive by default. If you are using WordPress 4.4 or later, you will not need to install any special plugins. You can also read more about this subject on our blog. Now, let's talk a bit about minifying files. Again, from the PageSpeed Insights document, minification refers to the process of removing unnecessary or redundant data without affecting how the resource is processed by the browser. For example, code comments and formatting, removing unused code, using shorter variable and function names, and so on. While this is all very technical, it actually says that you can lower the size of your files even further by eliminating some unwanted text from them. This rule applies to styling sheets or JavaScript and HTML code used to display the page. Unminified files will contain extra text that is not useful to the browser. For example, spaces are crucial for making your articles readable, but they are of no use in a styling sheet. There are several online tools that you can use to minify files. Just to give you a few examples, you can check out GSCompress for JavaScript or Clean CSS for styling sheets. However, you should also keep a copy of the unminified files in case you'll need them for later editing. The last point I'm going to cover from PageSpeed Insights is eliminating render blocking JavaScript and CSS in above the fold content. From the PageSpeed Insights docs. Before the browser can render content, it must process all the style and layout information for the current page. As a result, the browser will block rendering until external style sheets are downloaded and processed, which may require multiple round trips and delay the time to first render. For JavaScript files, before the browser can render a page, it has to build a document object model tree by parsing the HTML markup. During this process, whenever the parser encounters a script, it has to stop and execute it before it can continue parsing the HTML. In the case of an external script, the parser is also forced to wait for the resource to download, which may incur one or more network round trips and delay the time to first render of the page. All the PageSpeed Insights rules that we've covered so far refer to how to load a page's resources: cache, compress, optimize, and minify them. However, this particular point is all about when to load the files. Each page on your website has a section called Head. Among other things, this section is used to specify what files should be loaded from the server before the browser begins to display the page. During that time, the mobile users won't see anything on their screen, so it makes sense to limit the number of files loaded in the page's head section. This is exactly what PageSpeed Insights is trying to tell us. However, this rule shouldn't be a deal breaker. For example, you'll want to load the styling sheet before the page begins to display. Why? Because otherwise, mobile users might see a bunch of HTML text before the styling is applied. This is exactly how Google's search engine sees your website, since it doesn't care about styling. But of course, it is not something that you'd want your mobile users to see. Also, this rule doesn't apply to mobile web apps, also called single-page applications. Mobile web apps are composed entirely out of JavaScript code that handles the communication with the server and displays your content. Without this code, the mobile user won't actually see anything in the browser. So in this case, some of the JavaScript libraries should be loaded in the page's head section. I would list this point as optional because it greatly depends on how your mobile strategy is implemented. This is an issue that you can discuss with the developer and decide together if it's something that you should be taken into consideration. While Google PageSpeed Insights is a useful tool, it has a few important disadvantages. For once, it will only check one page at a time. If you have a mobile website with a lot of pages, it will be next to impossible to verify each one of them in this way. And also, you have to decide what points you should fix and what points you should skip. Ideally, you would want to fix them all, but as we've seen, that is not always possible. Ever since we launched our mobile audit service last year, we analyzed dozens of mobile websites and we came to realize that we needed to build our own all-in-one tool that would help us produce the best performance report for our customers. As you can imagine, what I've covered here is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to mobile performance. We usually look at other aspects such as page size, page height, mobile search engine optimization, but also user experience and security aspects, not to mention business-related topics, which we thoroughly described in the first episode of this webinar series. A few words on Google's accelerated mobile pages. This project started as a response to other platforms such as Facebook Instant Articles and Apple News. Accelerated Mobile Pages is an open initiative to help publishers create mobile content that loads instantly on various devices. That is because Accelerated Mobile Pages provides a stripped-down Google-hosted version of your website. Google hosts the Accelerated Mobile Pages to ensure there is enough server space to instantly load them to their search engine. Furthermore, Google restricts what content can be included on Accelerated Mobile Pages. Instead of traditional mobile pages, they use a special HTML language encoding style. It limits the styling of the page, but in return loads incredibly fast. This can increase the amount of development work needed to create an accelerated mobile page, with the exception of WordPress. Automattic, the company that created WordPress, released the Accelerated Mobile Pages plugin to help users implement accelerated mobile pages into their mobile strategy. Of course, when Google launched the Accelerated Mobile Pages project, it sparked a debate on the pros and cons of the new platform. In essence, the pros gravitate around the fact that mobile content loads incredibly fast, while the cons mainly speak to the work involved in setting this up, since this is more than just flipping a switch. You can read more about the pros and cons on one of our expert roundout blog posts here. Also, I think it's worth noting that we've included support for Google Accelerated Mobile Pages in our platform, alongside Facebook Instant Articles and Apple News that are coming soon. Alright, I hope you have a better picture of what needs to be done to improve the speed of your mobile website. And I imagine you have a lot of questions after this webinar. If you need further help, drop me a line and I'd be happy to assist you. Thank you all for attending, keep those mobile users happy and see you next time.